Welcome to Strait Forward, a podcast about Taiwan, the island at the center of technological innovation and the global fight for democracy. I'm your host, Channing Lee. I'm really excited today because we are going to be talking about Taiwanese cuisine, and not just talking about it, but we will be cooking it as well. I think the interview will speak for itself. So today what I'm going to do is bring in Clarissa Wei. She's a food journalist, award-winning food journalist. She's also the author of a cookbook called Made in Taiwan, Recipes and Stories from an Island Nation. She's going to tell us a little bit about Taiwanese cuisine, the history of it, and how different flavors from abroad and within Taiwan help shape what it is today. After we speak with Clarissa, I'm really excited to bring Ivy Chen onto the show. She is a cooking teacher, a cooking instructor here in Taiwan, and she is going to help teach me how to make Chao Mi Fen, which is like a stir-fried vermicelli dish. So without further ado, let's get into it. Thank you so much, Clarissa, for joining me here in Taipei in this beautiful kitchen space. I think I really want to ask you about your career being here in Taiwan as a food journalist, but I also want to try out some of the recipes from your cookbook later. So I'm really excited about that. Just to help get our listeners introduced to you, would you mind introducing yourself? You know, what inspired you to pursue a career in food journalism? What brought you to Taiwan? I think you're originally from LA, right? Mm-hmm. You know, why did you come here and decide to pursue this career here?
Yeah, thanks first and foremost for having us here. So I've been a food journalist for 15 years now. I'm originally from LA. My parents are Taiwanese, and I was a journalism major in college and felt that if I really wanted to tell the stories of people from a more like humanity lens, that food was one of the best ways to do it, because it is this unifier, as cliche as that might sound. And I was spending 2.5 years in Hong Kong, like filming the food of China and like traveling all throughout China and pushing out these amazing videos. And I felt that for Taiwan, which is the island where my parents are from, people really did not understand the food on a global level. People sort of are stuck to these cliches like beef noodle soup or xiaolongbao soup dumplings. And because people are so stuck on these cliches, their understanding of Taiwanese food was very narrow, and therefore Taiwan in general too, because I think a lot of people, when you travel, your first exposure to a place, its history, its culture, is through the meals you eat. That's like the most direct way. So I pitched this book as a way to tell the broader story of Taiwan, but very much through the lens of food.
That's really cool. And I also wanted to ask you, you founded a soy sauce company called Heido. Am I pronouncing correct? As it's like a play on word. It's Heydoh. I think you spell it.
Yeah, English. So we're based in Brooklyn in Taiwan, and we're a single origin soy sauce company. So actually 95% of soybeans, even in Taiwan, are imported, mostly from the US. It's actually, even though we are a soy eating country, it's actually very hard to find locally produced soy sauces made with single origin soybeans. So my soy sauce company is based on this specific varietal of black soybean, and we're brewing high quality soy sauce made in Taiwan, but we only fulfill in the States.
That is so neat. So
yeah.
What inspired you to make a soy sauce company?
Actually, this cookbook. So when you're testing or developing recipes for the American market, you have to use like the condiments that are the most common in the US. So I was using, generic soy sauce that you can get at any mass grocery store, but realizing that even though I was following the recipes that Ivy helped develop, the flavors weren't exactly the same, and that's just because I was using really cheap soy sauce. And at the end of the day, a lot of these like core flavors boil down to the quality of the condiments, and I really wanted to introduce the world to that via soy sauce.
That is so neat. Okay, we'll come back to the cookbook soon, but I want to take a step back first and talk about the history of Taiwanese cuisine. Right? Taiwan's history is so rich in I guess, foreign influences, right? There were a lot of different peoples who came and had inhabited Taiwan, and I assume all of those cultures ended up helping shape what Taiwanese cuisine is today. First and foremost, how would you describe Taiwanese cuisine? And how is it different from maybe Chinese or, I don't know, Cantonese, Shanghainese, even Japanese cuisine?
Yeah, that's a really difficult question because similar to how the United States is a melting pot, Taiwan is also a melting pot of influences, even though it might not look that way from surface level. So I believe like over 90% of people have Han Chinese ancestry, but like everyone's family came from different waves of immigration. And that coupled with foreign influences and colonial influences really impacted our food culture. So unfortunately, I don't think there is one like snappy sentence that like embodies what Taiwanese food is. And what I did in this book was really divide it up into different strains of influences. So you have like the 16th to 18th century Chinese people who were the first major wave of Chinese settlers here to Taiwan, and those were the people from the Fujian province. That's where my family and Ivy's family first came to Taiwan. And just to give people context, that was over 200 years ago. That was around when the United States of America was founded. So from a political standpoint, sometimes you hear like, oh, but you're originally from China. But like, again, just to give you context for how long that time was, that was 200 years ago. And so they brought a lot of foods that were rooted in just things that could grow easily and cheaply here. So like a lot of tubers like sweet potatoes, or they really utilize like the shellfish, oysters. There was some rice farming, but most of that was exported to China as a cash crop. And it was like the Dutch who actually recruited them over here. It was said that the Dutch inspired our culture of deep frying fish, which is not a verifiable fact at all. It's a cute little like tidbit, but who knows if that's actually true. I'm sure deep frying is something that is very much universal. Yeah. So that food is very prevalent in the south of Taiwan. If people travel down there, you see that a lot. And then after that, it's a Japanese colonial influence. So Taiwan was a Japanese colony for 50 years. And what Japan really did was modernize and streamline a lot of our core industries. So like the way that most soy sauces, rice wine, vinegars, sesame oils are made in Taiwan are actually made in like the Japanese style. So which I find really interesting. So when I was doing research for the book, I would call up like soy sauce factories and like try to figure out how they're making the soy sauce, and realize that stylistically it was much more similar to Japan, or it is much more similar to Japan than parts of China because of that colonial influence. And then there's also a lot of like sauces they introduced as well. Like we use miso a lot in Taiwanese food because of that influence. And then another influence after that that people don't really think about, I would say, okay, well, no, I'll get to that later. So then after the Japan was when the nationalist government came to Taiwan post 1949. And then they brought over a bunch of regional Chinese cookery. A lot of them was concentrated in the north. So like Taipei has a lot of those influences. So those are when dishes like beef noodle soup and like soup dumplings that came into play, but that was also fairly recent. What I found interesting was that these nationalists, the refugees from China, they only made up 15% of the population, but their food culture ended up dictating what Taiwanese food was to the world. And I remember like growing up, people being like, oh yeah, Taipei, that's like, it has like some of the best Chinese food in the world. And I was always really confused because when I visited here, I was always down in the south. So it was like a kind of a disconnect between how the world perceived Taiwan to what I felt Taiwanese people ate. And then another major wave of influence that people don't think about is the American influence.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, after the Cold War, like the US offloaded billions of dollars into Taiwan, which made us one of like the four, economic miracles. But also they offloaded a lot of wheat, and Taiwanese people didn't really know what to do with wheat. So bakers were sent to Kansas to learn how to bake. The Chinese refugees who came here, those from the north, they used that to make noodles. And it really just transformed our culture, but also it gave people this love and affinity for American culture as well. So a lot of our night market dishes, like if you go to the night market, you'll see like steakhouses, right? Or if you go to the streets for breakfast, you see like hamburgers for breakfast. A lot of that was born through this like love of American culture, American baseball, which became a really interesting subculture here in Taiwan. That really translated into the food as well. And Taiwanese food is basically a combination of all of those influences I talked about, plus other major influences that I didn't talk about, like indigenous and Hakka and Southeast Asian migrants. So it really is a melting pot of flavors, and it's hard to categorize it in just a couple of sentences.
Thank you for that really comprehensive overview. I think people really don't. I think people really didn't realize all the different flavors that are kind of part of what Taiwanese cuisine is today, because you're right. I think people do recognize beef noodle soup, xiaolongbao, made famous by Ding Tai Fung.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really, really interesting. And the other part that I found really funny was this love of hamburgers.
Yes.
I was talking to some locals, friends, and we're visiting, and like taking me to eat what you like to eat, and they said, oh well, actually we eat hamburgers all the time, and I don't think you're visiting from the US, I don't think you want to eat hamburgers or fries, so we're just gonna go find some kind of Taiwanese food for you to try it. I thought that's really funny because I would assume you're eating more of your local food, but anyways.
Yeah.
Can I ask you on the flip side, when companies, it just occurred to me, right, when companies like McDonald's or other American chains or even Italian, I think there's lots of Italian dishes, Italian restaurants as well, when they come to Taiwan, are those flavors also changed by some of the local ingredients?
Yeah, I think there is an adaptation to the local clientele, but that's true all throughout Asia. Like I was in Hong Kong, so Hong Kong McDonald's had, Hong Kong KFC had like the egg tarts.
Yeah.
Pizza Hut, for example, is an example of a franchise that does really well with catering to local flavors. So like I interviewed their head of marketing, who is originally from Hong Kong, and what they do is they like look at trendy flavors here in Taiwan, and they really are just appealing to the masses, because at the end of the day, people's relationship to fast food chains here in Asia is very different than the American relationship to fast food. Here, like McDonald's is a place where you like sit down and you like take it easy, where you can like drop your kids off and like have them do a little bit of homework there, because it's just, space for people to sit down. Whereas in the States, it's very much like drive-through fast food culture. So there definitely is menu adaptation, but more interestingly, from my perspective, is like how people treat these spaces. In the States, you don't linger in these mass chains, but in Taiwan, there's very much like, oh, this is foreign, let's stay here, let's like gather and meet here.
That is so true. I did actually have coffee with someone at McDonald's recently, and we drank corn soup.
Exactly.
Which was not something I would do in the US, so that's really interesting. I do want to talk about your cookbook. So it's called Made in Taiwan. We have a copy here. This is the Chinese version,
yes,
the Mandarin version.
Yeah.
But it's still very, very beautiful. Can you tell me about what inspired you to write a cookbook? I mean, you've been covering journalism, and I guess I assume when you're covering cuisine, you are asking about the food rather than making the food yourself and coming up with the recipes, right? So what inspired you to write your own cookbook?
Yeah, it was, again, I just saw this gap in the market there were a couple of Taiwanese cookbooks out there, but I felt that, being based here in Taiwan, having a journalism background, I could bring both politics and history into a cookbook. And what's beautiful about the cookbook is that it's tangible. So when people follow the recipes, they're actually getting a taste of Taiwan at home, no matter where they are. And when I pitched it, it was at a really interesting junction in geopolitics. This was when I first came up with the idea, I was in Hong Kong. This was during the protests. National security law was being passed, and this was when China just started sending a lot of warplanes into Taiwan's ADIZ zone. So there were a lot of headlines popping up about Hong Kong and Taiwan. And then, interestingly enough, COVID came, and then there was the whole Stop Asian Hate movement. So the confluence of all of these factors, suddenly major publishers in the States were interested in Taiwan. So it was just a right moment, right time sort of topic. If I had pitched this 10 years prior, I do not think it would have gotten the interest or the support that it got today, or maybe even perhaps 5 years afterwards. So I really just think I found the right timing for it.
Sometimes that's all that you need.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy that it worked out, because I'm glad that the world has a cookbook like this. But tell me more about the title, because I think the whole made in X country, right? Made in China, made in Taiwan, it's often, we're talking about commodity goods.
Yeah.
We're talking about, the cheap things that are made in China, or when you're talking about Taiwan, maybe it's technology, maybe it's semiconductors. And so the term made in Taiwan, to many might really might make you think of technology or something that's manufactured, right?
Yeah.
But instead you're using this title to describe food. So why did you choose this title? I assume it was intentional. Can you tell me about this?
Yeah, I mean, it really boils down to the thesis of the entire book is that these dishes are Taiwanese at the end of the day, even if quite a few of them have Chinese origin. And this was something I was seeing in the media, and you still see today where people are like, oh, but xiaolongbao is originally from Shanghai, Jiangsu area. Like, how can you call it uniquely Taiwanese? But you can say the same about like Tex-Mex burritos, right? Or like things that are very popular in the States but have origins in other countries. What Taiwan does is we take dishes from, because most people in Taiwan are immigrants in a way, depending on how you look at it. A lot of these dishes were invented and made in Taiwan, but even though there are dishes that weren't necessarily invented in Taiwan, they were made Taiwanese because Taiwanese people eat them and embrace them, very much like the hamburger that people have for breakfast. How can you say that's not Taiwanese?
Or pizza or pasta.
Exactly. So it's just like, it's the food of Taiwan, made in Taiwan. And I think I just like this title because people understand it, right? Especially in the 90s when you get a lot of commodities that were labeled made in Taiwan. I think just these three words really embody how I see Taiwanese food on the global stage.
So your book was published in 2023, right? And I do remember there was some controversy over this idea that you have Taiwanese food separate from any other identity. Can you just share a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I think the controversy is like overblown because it was just like, I wouldn't even say it's controversial. It's just 0.00% of people who are adamant that Taiwan is part of China. So how dare you claim that Taiwan is a separate entity? So it like boils down to identity politics. And if you actually look through the book, you see the story and the history of all of these dishes. So there's nothing to argue about. I think when you present a book inherently about Taiwanese food and call it, the English subtitle is Recipes and Stories of an Island Nation, that inevitably offends. But that's the nature of anything Taiwanese. Yeah, so I don't think... and I would challenge the fact that this book is controversial because I don't think it is. I just think because it's made in Taiwan by Taiwanese people and has the subtitle Island Nation, people make it more controversial or seem controversial when it really is not.
I think talk about timing. I think actually if this were published today, in 2026, that might not actually be as controversial.
Yeah, and
right?
that's kind of what's cool too, because I feel like we were one of the first people to like push this idea or like put it on in terms of culture, right? And you could tell that people were uncomfortable by it, but now that time has passed, people are like, oh yeah, Taiwan is its own culture. It has its own distinct identity, and that is obviously not just because of this book, but I do think this book had an influence in helping people think about how they saw Taiwanese identity.
What's your favorite recipe from the book?
One of my favorites is a recipe we collected from the all-time beef noodle soup champion.
Oh, wow.
There's like an annual beef noodle soup competition, and he's like won like 10 times or something ridiculous. And he gave us his recipe that he gave to his students. So then we adapted it and then for the American audience. So I really like that because the flavors reflect kind of what I think how the beef noodle soup scene has evolved in Taiwan. I think a lot of Asian Americans come here and they're like looking for that very like dark red hong sao like broth that's like very spice heavy. But I think a lot of chefs now are like, let's pair, and the reason why it was spice heavy was because they used like the lowest quality beef back then. Beef was taboo for most of the island except for the Chinese refugees who came here, so it was like really old cuts of cow. So they had to use spices to mask that flavor. But now, like, the mass majority of beef that people use are either imported from the States or Australia, so it's like really high quality stuff. So a mark of a beef noodle soup expert is the ability to bring out the inherent flavor of the beef without masking it. So I think this recipe strikes a good balance where you still have those like traditional like fermented chili bean paste and like the star anise, but it's like not too much where that's all you can taste.
So you're saying I can take this recipe, make my own beef noodle soup at home with American ingredients.
Yeah. All of the beef in the States is mostly imported. In Taiwan, sorry, all of the beef from Taiwan is mostly imported from the States. But yeah, I make that dish probably like once a year when the weather gets colder, and I just do it in an Instant Pot, and it's just an easy meal.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so exciting. What was the hardest recipe to kind of develop or look into?
That's definitely an Ivy question. So like Ivy tackled a lot of the technical aspects of the recipes. I think one that we both like could not wrap our heads around, or I could not wrap my heads around, was making Taiwanese style ice cream. So Taiwan, traditionally we don't have a dairy industry. 70% of Taiwan is mountainous. So instead of using milk, people use starch. And to create that like old flavor of ice cream, you have to use starch, or we were trying milk powder. And I was just ready to throw in the towel and just be like, let's just tell people to buy store-bought ice cream. But Ivy like worked at it over and over and over again. And like one day came to my house with like finished containers of ice cream, and she like nailed the texture. So like that was the benefit of having someone on her here, because she really can nail those techniques, whereas I probably would have given up really early.
Well, I'm really excited to bring Ivy on to this episode soon. Last question before we kind of ask for your Taiwan recommendation. I want you to talk a little bit about how you see Taiwanese cuisine as a part of Taiwan's soft power on the world stage, right? Even though the beef noodle soups and xiaolongbaos of the world, have originated for China and they have that history, they are still really known around the world as kind of Taiwanese cuisine. So can you talk a little bit about how the food here is part of Taiwan's kind of global soft power?
Yeah, I mean, I think using bubble tea as an example, it's something that you see in probably nearly most countries in the world, and people will say this is Taiwanese bubble tea. You don't really see Chinese bubble tea, maybe now a little bit, but like when people think bubble tea, they think of Taiwan. Same with like beef noodle soup, and interestingly, same with xiaolongbao as well. So I think just in terms of like a soft power, it's just a gateway conversation piece for people to learn more about Taiwan. And what was really important to me in writing this cookbook was to attach the stories to these dishes, and not stories just rooted in soft mythology, because I've noticed, and this is true of a lot of like Asian dishes, if you just Google like the history of an Asian dish, people will just make things up, or like say something like an old Chinese emperor made this in his sleep. It's like very high and lofty. And even if that's all I found online, then I would look for news articles where it was like how this dish became popular in Taiwan, or why it matters to people, even if it wasn't exactly invented in Taiwan, or how it was adapted for Taiwanese tastes and whatnot. So I think, food is a way for people to experience Taiwan or understand Taiwan no matter where they are, but telling the stories of these dishes is a way for them to really understand that Taiwan has its unique culinary and political identity.
Very well said. Thank you, Clarissa.
Yeah.
At the end of every episode, we like to ask our guests to recommend something from Taiwan. Most people might never have been here before, and it would be great to ask you, since you've been living here for the last several years, if you could recommend one thing from Taiwan to someone who doesn't know much about Taiwan, what would it be and why?
From a food perspective, I would recommend they try zecao, which is, if you look at the cover of our book, that says zecao scene that we recreated. So it's just like quick stir fries, and a lot of these dishes I think really reflect Taiwan's like diversity. So you have like ferns and like with like a Taiwanese olive that like only grows in the subtropics. But you also have like really classic dishes like 3 cups chicken or like stinky tofu, and it's somewhere where you can just sit on those low stools with like beer and really just enjoy it. So I think instead of, everyone goes to the night market, but I feel like the food at these tall restaurants are just better, and like you don't have to move, which I think is great. And like a naturey experience is to go to Wulai, which is close to where I live, and it's just this small indigenous village off the outskirts of Taiwan, and they have like a beautiful waterfall hike, and it's just a nice getaway from the city.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
This is really, really, really fascinating. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us. And I think for the next part of this episode, I'm really excited to bring your co-author on, Ivy Chen. So anyways, thank you again, Clarissa.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so first up, we need to poach the noodles.
Yes, so this is boiling water. Okay, and then we will put all the dry vermicelli inside the water, and then roughly cook about 1 minute.
1 minute.
Until it's soft. So this 1 minute will keep the rice vermicelli still a bit bite. Then we start chopping here.
Okay.
So this is dry shrimp.
Xiao Mi.
Yeah, already soaked until it's soft. So we remove the water. Okay. And also shiitake, you squeeze the water out, and then you will slice it.
So now you can squeeze mushrooms like that.
Yes, and then we'll keep the water for the later to stir fry together. That will be very nice as umami. So for the shiitake mushroom, you remove the stem like this, and then you are going to slice. So you slice like this. Okay, you hold the pieces like this. Would you like to try?
Oh, wow. Do you hold it up this way?
Yeah, either side, and then you move your.
This is embarrassing.
No worry.
Oh, now I see why the knife is round.
Okay, enough.
Okay.
Good, good. So this is the way. And then you put in a plate, and then also carrots. We're going to slice first. So you slice.
Oh, I see.
Like this, and then you put them here, like a julienne. Okay, so you do this way. Okay, you can finish it.
That's how you get it so thin.
Yes. Good. All right, then we put this in the plate, and then cabbage. So we are going to cut a cabbage in about 1 centimeter diameter, so it will be like this. Okay, so that's enough. So we are going to put this aside. Okay.
Okay.
So then, that's our vegetable ingredients. And then we're going to cut the pork. I'll show you. This is the tenderloin and very good meat. We just slice it like this. You slice a couple pieces, and then you are going to cut strips, long strips. So it's too long, I will diagonally cut this way. So cutting meat will be like this. One go, okay, and then.
Oh, that's how you get the roast. Like how
Right. So this is like strips cuts. Or you can move forward and backwards. That's the way. Okay, so this you can try. I'll keep the last for you. And Taiwan cooking, we normally not marinate the pork, but I feel that's too bland, so I'm going to do a little bit marinade.
Okay.
So later you will just put this in the bowl.
Oops. that okay?
Yes.
Well, the
right.
ones that are cut nicely are yours. The ones that are not cut as nicely are mine.
So for marinade, we are going to put the rice wine and
How much rice wine? Just a little bit.
sprinkle. Okay, depends on the amount of the meat, and then little soy sauce give the flavor. Okay, so normally the wine will be very refresh, add the flavor to it, and then we need soy sauce is for the savory flavor. Then the sesame oil just a little, and it will be. The meat won't stick together, so then you just stir like this, and leave it for a couple of minutes. Okay, so then that will be ready. So we can start cooking now.
All right.
Right.
Okay, so you brought your own stove. This is cool.
Okay, so we heat up the wok first until it's very hot, and then we add oil.
This regular oil, olive oil, or
And no,
canola
it's
oil?
just canola
Canola.
or sunflower.
Okay.
Okay, then we are going to fry the shiitake first.
Okay.
And you get all the shiitake in. Okay, then
Shrimp.
one mushroom. Yes. So, and until they are golden, okay, in the oil, nice flavor. You can smell the flavor, and then you add the pork. Okay. And when the pork is half done, you add all the vegetable. Okay. Okay. And all in.
Uh-oh. Can I stir?
Okay. So please hold
Okay.
it. Yes, and stir. Good.
I do sometimes cook with a wok at home.
Yeah. And in this moment, you add the shiitake mushroom water. Yeah. And then,
It smells so good.
yeah, okay. At the same time, you splash wine over and soy sauce
Okay.
from the side, so you get a better flavor. And you need some sugar.
Oh,
And
it's a lot of sugar.
little salt to balance.
What is this?
Salt, sea
Oh,
salt.
salt.
So your soy sauce just color the rice vermicelli. You don't need to add too much soy sauce. That would be too dark. Okay, and now, so the vegetable is half done. You put all the vegetable on the side. Okay, so your liquid in the center.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, liquid in the center. So now please add the vermicelli in. Okay, you can just, yes, you scrape in.
Oh, in the middle.
In the middle. Okay, now this is the big part. Okay, you need to taste. Okay, you need a little bit more. And also pepper.
Salt, pepper.
Yes, okay, so now use this. You need to fold over. Okay, fold over. Stir well. Okay, and then
That's cool. So you're cooking the noodles, the vermicelli, in the middle of the ingredients.
yes, okay,
And
and
then-
then you cook it slowly
Okay.
until they absorb the liquid.
You're turning
okay?
down the heat a little bit.
Yes, yes. So then you have time to stir them, and sometimes you may need to add a little water to cook it. So you basically cook the noodle, rice vermicelli in the middle with your sauce, and until the noodle is soft. Then you mix all the vegetable from the side.
I see.
Yeah, so it's very simple. And then you taste the noodle later. See if it's soft to your taste and flavorful.
Okay.
So you can have some.
Oh, try.
Yeah, try the rice vermicelli.
Can't get it. These are giant chopsticks. Should I just use my fingers?
Yeah, that's not enough to try.
Oh, that's good. It's kind of hard still.
Okay, so then you need to cook it more. It's chewy.
Chewy.
It's ready. Okay, let's see. Okay, you keep moving.
Can we use this one too? A little bit water.
Yeah, but I think it's ready. It's not too tough.
Okay.
Okay, mix all the
Mix all
vegetables
the
from the
ingredients?
side. Yeah, and then stir well. And then the last will be little black vinegar. Okay, just a little touch, because we have shrimp. So black vinegar will be very nice. And the little sesame oil in the end as well, just like a drizzling. Okay, mix. Done.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. It's ready.
It's ready? It's all done?
Yes.
That was so
Okay.
fast.
Okay. And normally you put the rice in the middle, rice noodle in the middle, and the cabbage all on top. It's a garnish. Yeah. Scrape it. Good job.
Yay.
Good job, Chen. Good. All right. So that's our,
Wow. That was beautiful.
right? You
Hold on,
made it.
Which camera should I show? This one? Look at this. It's so beautiful and it was so easy.
Yes. Okay.
You told me it'd be easy, but I was
It
skeptical.
is. Okay, that's why it's a home cooking.
Ah.
Okay, so shall we try it?
Yes.
All right.
Oh my gosh. I'm so happy. This is so exciting. Okay. So since all the flavors are in here, you don't need to add anything else, right? You just
No, the flavor is in the sauce. So,
All right, shall we?
okay, 请用 Bon appetit.
Yay.
Okay, please enjoy it.
It's so pretty.
Okay, you may need to hold it. Just 拿起来，拿起来. Okay, so I
一拿
know
就全部都拿到。
normally I will cut it in
Yeah,
the
sure.
wok.
With scissors
Okay,
or something.
go ahead.
All right.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Cheers. I'm so excited. This smells really good. The noodles are really
what do you
chewy.
think?
It's really good. It tastes just like a restaurant. I mean, of course, you're a professional. But, wow. It tastes so good. Thank you.
好吃啊?
很好吃.
Okay,
Yay.
so we made it.
Thank you so much, Ivy. This is so awesome.
Thank you for joining me.
Well, that was delicious. Thank you so much again, Ivy. Thank you to Clarissa for joining earlier to talk about Taiwanese cuisine. I think what really struck me was, again, all the flavors that came from all the different foreign influences, right, that ended up shaping what Taiwanese cuisine is today. So, Ivy, thank you so much. I think if people come to Taiwan and want to meet Ivy, they can reach out to her via her website, ivyskitchen.com. And with that, we look straight forward to seeing you next time.